At the beginning, everything is quiet. Not the kind of quiet that feels empty, but the kind that feels full, like water before it is touched. Nothing is missing yet. Nothing is rushing. The heart is calm enough to hear itself. There is a small wish, almost gentle. It does not shout, it does not demand. It feels reasonable, even innocent. A wish like this often arrives softly, pretending it will not change much. It says, just a little more, just this once. And at first it feels harmless to listen. The water moves slightly, not enough to cause fear, just enough to notice. In this moment, silence still feels like a friend. It wraps around the thought and keeps it warm. There is no argument inside yet, no tension in the chest, only curiosity, only wondering what might happen if the wish is answered. The heart watches itself quietly. It notices how easy it is to imagine more, how natural it feels to reach forward even when nothing has been taken away. Why does wanting come so easily, even when peace is already here? The question floats by without needing an answer. There is dignity in this early stillness. A person does not yet feel pulled apart by desire and restraint. The mind is not crowded. The breath is slow. Silence is not being used as a shield. It is simply there, like air. Sometimes, this is the most honest moment. Before the story becomes complicated, before feelings harden into positions, before words are prepared in advance. In this quiet beginning, nothing needs to be defended. Nothing needs to be explained. The self does not feel watched. There is no sense of being judged, only a private space where thoughts can rise and fall without consequence. It is easy to forget how powerful this state is. Not power that controls, but power that rests. The kind that comes from not needing anything to be different right now. The kind that does not rush to speak, because it is still listening. The wish lingers, but it has not taken over. It waits. And in waiting, it shows its true size, small enough to hold, small enough to let go of, if needed. Silence here is not resistance, it is awareness. It allows the heart to see the wish clearly without becoming it. This is where inner strength begins, though it does not announce itself. It does not feel like strength yet. It feels like calm. The water reflects the sky without effort. Nothing is disturbed. Nothing is hidden. There is a lesson already present, though it has not yet been learned. That peace does not come from having more, but from knowing when enough is already here. That silence is not emptiness, but a space where truth can breathe. In this beginning, the self is still whole. It has not been divided into reaction and regret. It has not been pushed to prove its worth. It simply exists, steady and unafraid. And maybe that is why this moment matters so much, because once the water is stirred further, it is hard to remember how still it once was. Once voices rise, silence must be chosen, not given. But for now, there is only this, a quiet wish, a calm heart, a pause that holds more wisdom than words ever could. The story has not yet asked anything of the listener. It only invites them to notice, to remember this feeling, the feeling of standing at the edge, before desire grows loud, before silence becomes heavy. Here, silence is light, and inner peace is not something earned. It is simply not yet lost. The small wish begins to move on its own. It stirs the water, and suddenly quiet is no longer quite enough. They speak softly at first, but with a force that the heart can feel. Their words are full of expectation, full of want, and the silence that once held peace now trembles under the weight of being noticed. It is strange how easily a quiet heart can be misread. They hear the stillness and call it weakness. They see patience and call it neglect. And in this gentle misunderstanding, the first shadows of discomfort appear. The heart feels exposed, though it has not moved, though it has not acted. How is it that simply listening can seem so strange to someone else? The wish stretches in the quiet, growing taller and heavier, and still no one asks if it is needed or if it is wanted in the way they imagine. They insist, and the insistence carries a sound that jars the soul. A quiet heart, used to its own rhythm, finds itself off balance. Should it speak? Should it move? Or should it remain as it always has, calm and unbroken? And in these moments, a new feeling rises, a subtle ache like wind across still water. The heart notices the tension in itself and wonders why silence has suddenly become so heavy. Why does restraint feel like waiting for a storm? The answer is not urgent, not needed yet. It simply sits there, quietly, like a shadow following the sun. They misunderstand more with each passing breath. Every gentle refusal is seen as stubbornness. Every pause is taken for hesitation, and the small wish that once felt harmless now feels fragile, like glass that might shatter at the slightest sound. And the heart learns, slowly, that not all misjudgment can be corrected, that sometimes simply being is enough to be questioned. There is a strange beauty in being misunderstood. It teaches the heart to observe itself more closely, to notice how desire and fear mingle silently within, how patience becomes not a mask, but a presence, how silence, once soft and light, can carry weight without losing grace. It is a quiet tension, not loud or painful, but deep and persistent. The heart feels it in the chest, in the pause of a breath, in the careful way it looks at the world. How delicate everything becomes when someone else's expectations press against your own stillness. How easily peace can be seen as absence. And yet, the heart does not move to fill the space with words. It does not reach to explain or justify. Instead, it listens more closely. It watches the tide of misunderstanding roll in and out. And in watching, it begins to feel a strange strength. Not a power that overcomes or commands, but a strength that simply holds, unmoved. Why does silence become so misunderstood? Perhaps because it asks nothing, and yet shows everything. Perhaps because it is easier to measure words than to measure the quiet courage of simply being. Perhaps because restraint, so gentle in its making, appears empty to those who do not pause. The heart grows tired of speaking before speaking is needed. It notices how reaction can be expected, even demanded, as though every pause is a failure. And here, in this quiet pressure, the heart begins to see that the real test is not in answering them, but in answering itself. In noticing what rises and letting it pass without shaping it into something else. They will not understand. That is certain. And yet, the heart realizes understanding was never required to keep peace. Silence now carries a subtle dignity, like the air that remains after a song ends. It is not a triumph, not a victory. It is simply a quiet choice, an act of attention to one's own inner life, gentle but firm. And as the moments stretch, the small wish no longer feels fragile. It feels observed, held, but not spoken over. The heart has learned that even amid misunderstanding, there is a place where it can remain unshaken. A place where words are not the measure of value, where calm is not a sign of weakness, where patience itself becomes a quiet form of power. It is in this listening, in this careful stillness amid voices that expect noise, that the heart begins to understand something important. That restraint is not absence, that silence is not nothing, that the real gift is in allowing the self to remain unbroken, even when they do not see, even when they do not understand. And in the soft unfolding of these moments, the heart feels a weight lift, not a loud relief, not an announcement, but a gentle settling, like water returning to calm after a wind passes. They speak, they press, they misunderstand. And yet, the quiet endures, and with it, a quiet power that no one can take away. The heart grows heavy in this quiet, not from action, but from watching. They press and push, and yet no words come in reply. Every expectation they carry presses gently against the stillness, like wind against a closed door. The heart feels the weight, even as it does not move. How strange it is! to be noticed and not acted upon, to be seen but not understood. In this space, the self becomes aware of itself in a new way. It notices the pulse beneath the calm, the small tremor that comes with restraint. It notices how easy it is to be drawn into wanting to explain, to defend, to react, and yet it does not. What is this feeling that both aches and strengthens at the same time? Is it patience or something deeper? They speak and misinterpret, and the quiet heart feels misunderstood. Each gentle pause is taken for weakness. Each thoughtful hesitation is read as doubt, and the small wish, once so simple and innocent, now seems fragile under their gaze. How can the self remain whole when others see it through the lens of expectation and not of truth? The ache of being misunderstood is subtle but persistent. It slips into the quiet spaces between thoughts, like shadows stretching across a sunlit room. It is not painful in a sudden way, but slow, insistent, a quiet pressure that makes the heart aware of itself in ways it has never been before. And in this awareness, a strange lesson begins to rise, soft and almost invisible. The heart begins to notice the distance between what it feels and what others expect. It sees how easily they can mistake calm for surrender or restraint for absence. And yet, the self does not move to correct them. It does not speak to reshape their understanding. Instead, it watches, and in watching, it begins to understand something delicate, that being misread does not diminish the truth of one's own quiet strength. The small wish glows faintly, not demanding, not loud, just present. It is held gently by the calm heart. And in holding it without reaching, without reacting, the heart discovers the first trace of power. Not the power of words or deeds, not the power that can be seen or praised, but the quiet power of simply remaining whole. It is in these moments, heavy with misunderstanding, that patience shows its weight. The heart learns that silence is not emptiness. It learns that restraint is not weakness. It learns that not answering their expectations does not mean surrendering one's own truth. And slowly, the ache begins to soften, becoming something like stillness in the bones, a quiet strength that does not need to be displayed. What does it mean to be steady even when the world expects movement? What does it mean to be calm even when their voices rise? The heart cannot answer in words, and perhaps it does not need to. The answer lies in the quiet observation of itself. The answer lies in the breath that remains even when tension presses. The answer lies in the choice to hold silence as a friend rather than a burden. The heart begins to feel a subtle clarity. It sees that inner power does not arrive through reaction. It does not arrive through insistence or defense. It grows slowly in the pauses, in the careful holding of what is delicate inside. It grows in the gentle refusal to be swept away by misunderstanding or pressure. The quiet becomes not just a shelter but a teacher. And as the moments stretch, the self begins to feel a lightness beneath the weight. Misunderstanding remains, of course, because they cannot see what the heart holds, and yet the heart no longer feels small or lost. It has found a space where words are not needed, where calm is enough, where restraint carries a quiet dignity. The small wish, once fragile, now rests with a quiet certainty. It is observed, but not claimed, held, but not pressured. And the heart notices, slowly, gently, that it has begun to grow in this space of stillness, that the act of not reacting, of letting misunderstanding pass without being carried away by it, has made the self stronger, softer, more present. And in the hush of all this, the heart feels something like relief, though it is not loud or rushing. It is gentle like a soft wind passing over still water. The ache of being misunderstood has not disappeared, but it no longer binds. Instead, it has become a quiet teacher, showing that strength is found not in responding to every expectation, but in remaining patiently, quietly, steadily oneself. The water is still again, Not the stillness of the beginning when everything was untouched, but a deeper quiet, the kind that comes after storms have passed, after voices have faded. The heart has felt the push of desire, the weight of misunderstanding, and the small ache of restraint. And now, in the silence that remains, it notices something new. It notices itself. Not the self that reacts, not the self that reaches, but the self that watches. The self that does not need applause, that does not need agreement, that does not need anyone to see. It sits quietly, as if it has returned home after a long journey, and it feels simply that it belongs to itself. There is a dignity in this quiet, a gentle power that does not shout. It is not measured by what is taken or given, but by what remains. What remains is calm. What remains is patience. What remains is the understanding that inner peace is not a thing to earn, but a place to return to again and again, no matter what the world asks. The heart feels lighter, yet deeper. It has learned that silence is not absence, that restraint is not weakness. It has learned that choosing not to react is not giving in, but standing still with something steady inside. The very act of holding back, of letting words and actions pass without chasing them, has become a quiet strength. It is invisible almost, yet it is real. They may still speak, still press, still misunderstand, and yet the heart knows that it does not need their approval. The calm does not depend on recognition. The power does not need to be seen. It exists in the space between thought and action, in the pause that is chosen, not forced. Here the self feels whole. The small wish, once fragile and bright, now rests gently, like a golden leaf floating on water. It is no longer urgent, no longer insistent. It has been observed, understood, and held without being consumed. And in that gentle holding, the heart feels a quiet pride, not the kind that asks to be noticed, but the kind that simply whispers, "I am here, I have remained, I am enough." Perhaps this is what peace is. Not the absence of trouble, not the absence of desire, not the absence of misunderstanding, but the presence of a self that does not lose itself, even when the tides rise, the presence of a heart that watches, that listens, that remains calm, even when others cannot understand. The stillness has a rhythm of its own now. It is soft, slow, and steady, like breathing after a long walk. There is no need to speak, no need to act. The heart has seen the storms, and it has not been swept away, and in that, there is a gentle joy, a quiet satisfaction that doesn't shout but simply rests. In this quiet, the world seems a little softer. The voices that once pressed now feel distant, like echoes on the edge of memory. The heart notices that it has grown, not in loud ways, not in ways that can be counted or measured, but in ways that are invisible and yet unshakable. The growth is slow, like a tree bending toward sunlight. It does not need to be announced to exist. And so the heart remains calm, even as the small wish glows softly inside. It feels the dignity of restraint, the gentle power of silence, the quiet certainty of self-respect. There is no need to prove anything. There is no need to fight. There is only the knowing that peace can live here within, if only it is tended with gentle care. The water reflects the sky again, smooth and unbroken. The heart watches it and sees its own reflection, steady, serene, quietly strong. And in that reflection, it feels a deep understanding, soft as a whisper. That silence, when chosen, can hold more than words ever could. That patience, when kept, can hold more than anger. That self-respect, when honored, is the truest kind of power there is. And in the stillness, the heart breathes, slow and easy, as though it has finally come home.